Hi, my name is Nick Corwin with the American Revolution Explain Everything Project. The first cause of the Revolutionary War was the French and Indian War from 1754 to 1763. The war was between the British with their colonies and France with the Native Americans. Though Britain won the war, they were plunged into debt. The second causes of the Revolutionary War were Pontiac's Rebellion and the Proclamation of 1763. Pontiac's Rebellion was a native uprising to prevent colonists from settling the West after the French and Indian War. Though the natives lost the war, it ended with the Proclamation of 1763, forbidding the colonists from settling west of the Appalachian Mountains. Despite this proclamation, though, the area still began to be settled by the English. The Grenville Acts were acts passed by Parliament to tax the colonies for money lost in the French and Indian War and in Pontiac's Rebellion. These acts included the Stamp Act and the Sugar Act. These acts required colonists to pay taxes on printed materials to lower the debt from the French and Indian War, and it also discouraged the smuggling of goods by colonists. This led to the Stamp Act Congress, which met to discuss these acts, coming to the conclusion of no taxation without representation. The Sons and Daughters of Liberty were two protesting groups created in Boston to respond to the Stamp Acts of 1765. These groups took part in protests that included boycotting of British goods, the destruction of tax collectors' homes, the governor's home, and included the tarring and feathering of tax collectors and loyalists. These groups included Sam Adams, Paul Revere, and John Adams as some of their key members. In response, the Parliament repealed the Stamp Acts. The Boston Massacre was the murder of 5 unarmed protesters by British soldiers in Boston Commons. The Boston Massacre was used as propaganda by the Massachusetts colony to rally support for the independence cause. Parliament, still in debt, puts in place the Townshend Acts, which more heavily taxed the colonies. Taxes included in the Townshend Acts were taxes on lead, paper, and other goods. The Boston Tea Party was the dumping of approximately $3 million worth of East India Trading Company tea into the Boston harbor by the Sons of Liberty. The colonists were protesting the tea monopoly on the colonies by the British, and these in turn led to the Intolerable Acts. As mentioned in the last slide, the Intolerable Acts were created in response to the Boston Tea Party. They led to the closing of Boston Harbor, the Quartering Act, which allowed soldiers to stay in any home that they pleased in the colonies, and the Governing Act that allowed only parliamentary appointed officials to serve as governor. These Intolerable Acts didn't really do much. They just created more animosity between the colonies and Britain. The First Continental Congress was a meeting of representatives from each colony. The meeting took place in Carpenter's Hall in Philadelphia on September 5th, 1774, with a representative from each state, excluding Georgia. The Congress drafted the Declaration of Rights and Grievances to allow the colonists more rights and sent it directly to the king, showing faith to the crown but not to Parliament because they disagreed with Parliament's ideologies. The king refused to listen to the colonies, making war inevitable and sending more troops to Boston. The Battle of Lexington and Concord was the first official battle of the Revolutionary War. It was set in place by British soldiers moving through Massachusetts to confiscate weapons from the colonists. The British, though, underestimated the Patriot resistance, killing 8 Patriots, but suffering a greater loss and having to retreat and not confiscating any of the weapons. Though it is not sure who shot first, the British definitely shot second, and the Continental Army shot last, having won the battle. The Second Continental Congress, like the First Continental Congress, convened in Philadelphia, this time in 1775, to discuss the matters of independence from Britain. All representatives from the colonies were present again, except Georgia. Congress created the Continental Army on June 14, 1775, and put George Washington in as the commander. The Olive Branch Petition was an attempt at peace by the Second Continental Congress with Britain, which was rejected by the king. Eventually, on July 2nd, 1776, the first resolution of independence was passed by Congress and was written by Thomas Jefferson. And on July 4th, 1776, the Congress approved the official Declaration of Independence. The United States Constitution was officially ratified in 1788 after the war had ended, creating a steady government for the United States of America.